Grim Trials is launching on Nintendo Switch, and with the full game arriving, I decided to jump into the demo and see what this new roguelite is all about. And I didn't even need to finish the entire demo before a few things started getting my attention. I really like the art style, the gameplay feels good, and there's one feature I wasn't expecting to enjoy quite as much as I did. You actually gather materials and craft your own weapons and equipment. Now, I've only played part of the Nintendo Switch demo, so this is absolutely not a review of the full game. These are my first impressions. But with Grim Trials releasing on Switch, I wanted to show you what I've experienced so far, and whether this looks like a roguelite worth keeping an eye on. The art immediately got my attention. The first thing that stood out to me was simply the way Grim Trials looks. There's a distinctive style to the game that gives it some personality almost immediately. It has this darker fantasy atmosphere, but there's still plenty of character in the environments, enemies, and overall presentation. And that's something I appreciate, especially in a roguelite. You're potentially going to spend a lot of time fighting enemies, collecting resources, and repeating that basic gameplay loop. So if I'm going to spend hours looking at a game, I want to actually enjoy the world I'm looking at. And so far, I definitely do. There's something about the visual style here that made me want to keep moving forward just to see what the next area and the next enemy was going to look like. But good art can only take a game so far. The more important question is, does it actually feel good to play? Based on the portion of the Nintendo Switch demo I've played, the answer is yes. The movement feels good, the combat feels responsive, and it didn't take me very long to get comfortable with the controls. That's always something I appreciate in an action game. I don't want to spend the first hour constantly thinking about which button I'm supposed to press. I want the controls to disappear into the background so I can concentrate on what's happening on the screen. And Grim Trials got me to that point pretty quickly. There's a nice rhythm to moving around, engaging enemies, and working your way through each area. Obviously, I've only scratched the surface here. I'll need considerably more time with the full game before I can judge how much variety or depth the combat eventually offers. But the important thing for me is that the foundation feels good. And if the basic act of playing a roguelite isn't fun, it doesn't really matter how many upgrades or systems you put around it. Thankfully, that's not a problem I've had with Grim Trials so far. This might actually be the part of Grim Trials that surprised me the most, because you're not simply fighting enemies and waiting for the game to hand you another upgrade. You can gather materials and use them to craft weapons and equipment, and for me, that immediately makes the progression more interesting. I've always enjoyed games where collecting resources eventually turns into something tangible. You find materials, you bring those materials together, you create something useful, and suddenly you've got a new weapon or piece of equipment that can help you push a little farther. Putting that kind of crafting loop inside a roguelite is a combination that really appeals to me. It gives me another reason to pay attention to what I'm finding instead of simply rushing toward the next fight. There's a progression loop here that I find really satisfying. Gather materials, craft better equipment, get stronger, and see how much farther you can make it. It's a simple concept, but it's one that makes me curious about just how deep the crafting system becomes later in the game. Of course, this is where I have to emphasize again that I've only played part of the demo. There are plenty of things I simply can't answer yet. How much variety will there be between runs? How many different weapons and pieces of equipment can you eventually craft? How deep does that crafting system become? How much does the game change as you progress? And probably the biggest question with any roguelite, does it stay interesting after you've played it for hours instead of minutes? I don't know yet, and that's why I'm not going to pretend this is a review, but I can answer one question. Did the demo make me want to play more? Yes, and ultimately, that's exactly what a demo is supposed to do. Grim Trials gave me enough to get interested without giving me enough to answer all of my questions. I like the art, I like the way the gameplay feels, and I really like the idea of gathering materials and crafting weapons and equipment as part of the roguelite progression. So based on what I've played so far, the demo has done its job. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.